Hey everyone. Recently, I watched an intriguing American supernatural horror film titled Salem's Lot, which was released in 2024. This movie is based on the classic 1975 novel written by the legendary author Stephen King. The Internet Movie Database rating for this movie is 5.6 stars out of 10. Before starting the video, please consider subscribing to the channel. So, let's take a deeper dive into its captivating story. The film begins with a man named Richard Straker informing Royal Snow that he has nearly completed his move from London to Jerusalem's Lot town. He mentions the urgent need to retrieve an important item, a large, old, and heavy craft set to arrive at the wharf at 6 o'clock in the evening. Straker instructs Snow to deliver it to his new house, referring to Marston House. That night, Snow, with his partner Hank, arrived at the Marston House to deliver the craft. Hank mentions that his grandma told stories about the owner, Hubert Marston, worshiping Satan, killing his wife as a sacrifice before taking his own life, but Snow dismisses it. While carrying the craft to the cellar, but in the darkness and burdened by its heaviness, Hank lost his grip and shattered it. When Snow turns on the light, Hank mentions the craft was packed with dirt, but Snow isn't concerned. They placed it in the cellar. While leaving, Snow hears whispers from the craft, urging him to come closer. However, Hank shouted at him to leave, and they dashed out. In the following scene, we are introduced to Ben Mears, an author who is observing Marston House. He is startled by a police officer, Parkins, who questions him about his presence there. Ben explains that he used to live in the town as a child, and assures the officer that he means no trouble, prompting the officer to leave. He then visits a real estate company to rent a place and encounters a woman named Susan, who is reading Ben's book but doesn't recognize him. Ben asks about the Marston house and learns that it has been empty for 40 years. It was recently purchased by a European man named Richard Straker, who has opened a shop across the street. When Ben introduces himself, Susan realizes that he is the author of the book she's been reading and provides the address of Eva Miller, who has a room available for rent, and Ben decides to rent the room at Eva's place. In the next scene at Stanley's school, Mark Petrie, showing magic tricks to his friends, when bully Richie Bodden attacks him. Mark fights back and pins Richie down until teacher Matt Burke intervenes. Later, Straker observes the kids from his shop with a suspicious gaze. In the following scene, Ben researches Marston House for his next book at the library when Susan arrives. The receptionist informs her about a terrible crash that occurred on Hallowell Road 20 years ago, in which Ben tragically lost his parents. Afterward, Susan invites Ben to join her at the drive-in that night. Meanwhile, Danny Glick and Ralphie Glick head over to Mark's house, a horror fan with an interesting collection of scary toys in his room. After checking them out, Danny insists they need to leave before dark. In the next scene, Ben and Susan meet at a drive-in, where she reveals she needs her real estate license to return to Boston. She explains she came to help her sick father, who passed away last year, and mentions her mother's efforts to keep her from leaving, and eventually asks about Ben. He shares he is researching for his next book. The scene then shifts to Danny and Ralph, who come across Straker. He offers them a ride home, but Danny declines the offer and walks away. As Straker stealthily approaches Ralph from behind and kidnaps him before Danny can notice. He then takes Ralph to the Marston house to offer him as a sacrifice to his master, Kurt Barlow, a powerful ancient vampire, so that Barlow can reshape the town in his own image and ultimately kills Ralph. A week later, Ben, Matt, and two others set out on a search party, but failed to locate Ralph. People start blaming Ben, since strange events seem to occur after his arrival in town. Meanwhile, Danny has no recollection of anything that happened to Ralph. Later that night, Ben drops Susan off at home, where her mom disapproved of him as an outsider. That evening, Danny heard Ralph's mouth organ outside and found it in the yard. But he was suddenly grabbed and ended up in his mom's room, claiming he feeling sick. He was later diagnosed with pernicious anemia, a condition preventing his body from making blood quickly enough. Later, Danny woke up feeling thirsty, and while his mom went to call a nurse, she returned to find Danny drinking from a blood bag, which ultimately led to his death. The following day, Priest Callahan performs Danny's rites. Mike Ryerson sits by the tree and falls asleep. When he wakes up at night, he hurriedly begins to bury Danny's coffin. Hearing Danny calling for help, Mike opens the coffin, only to find him unresponsive. Despite this, Mike continues to bury it, but soon discovers that the coffin is empty. Suddenly, he was attacked by Danny. The next night, Matt saw Mike unwell at the bar and took him home, noticing bite marks on his neck that made him suspect as a vampire bite. While downstairs, Matt heard a knock, followed by a whisper saying, "Let me in." When he stepped outside, he spotted a figure entering his home through the window. He then went to Ben's place, where Susan was also present. They return to Matt's house and find Mike dead, but Ben doesn't see the bite mark. Matt explains that when a human dies from a vampire bite, the mark disappears and they turn into a vampire. Ben and Susan believe him after discovering the bloodstain. Ben suggests that they inform the police. Minutes later, Officer Parkins arrives and Dr. Cody declares him dead, suspecting he died from pernicious anemia like Danny. In a different scene, Mark was sleeping when he heard a knock on the window and discovered Danny outside.
Open the window, Mark.
Danny used hypnosis to persuade Mark to open the window. Before Mark realized his mistake, Danny enters his room and informed Mark that Mr. Barlow wanted to meet him. Then Mark pressed a cross against Danny's face, causing him to flee the room, as Mark vowed to set him free. At Matt's house, while researching vampires, he encountered Mike, the vampire. To protect himself, Matt grabbed a cross, causing Mike to dash out of the room. As Matt checked his house with the cross in his hand, Mike launched an attack from behind. As he advances toward Matt, reacting quickly, Matt raises the cross and declares that he revoked Mike's invitation, forcing the vampire to retreat from his home. The following day at the hospital, the nurse informs Dr. Cody that Danny's mother was found dead in the morning. When Dr. Cody inquires about Mike's body, she discovers it has vanished. Shortly after, Dr. Cody arrives at Matt's house and finds him on the floor. Ben and Susan also show up. Dr. Cody shares the news about Danny's mother passing away, prompting Matt to explain that faith, crosses, wooden stakes, white roses, and garlic are all effective deterrents against vampires. He also mentions that Straker purchased all the white roses from the flower shop last week, but Dr. Cody remains skeptical. Ben then proposes that they exhume Danny's body for further investigation. However, Dr. Cody suggests that Danny's mother also died in the same manner as Danny, and her body is currently at Green's mortuary, where she can be examined. They will wait until night to proceed. Later, Mark ventured into the cellar of Marston House to confront Barlow, but instead discovered Matt. Suddenly, Straker locked the cellar door behind them. As they tried to find an escape using a candle, Matt assisted Mark in attempting to climb out of the cellar. However, Straker then kidnapped Mark. Meanwhile, Ben, Susan, and Dr. Cody are at the morgue to check on Danny's mother, who is rumored to turn into a vampire after sunset. However, nothing happens initially. Then, Susan questions how they can protect themselves if she does rise. Suddenly, Danny's mother begins to move, prompting the three of them to quickly create a makeshift cross. Unfortunately, it breaks. The vampire then lunged onto Dr. Cody and bites her. In response, Susan quickly makes another cross and presses it against the vampire's back until it vanishes. Dr. Cody suggests that Susan inject her with a rabies shot to prevent her turning into a vampire. All three of them rush to Matt's house and find vampires Danny and Mike on the roof, leading them to believe that Matt has also become one of them. Meanwhile, Mark was bound but somehow managed to free himself and kill Straker. At the church, Ben tells the priest about the vampires, but he doesn't believe him. Mark then enters the church and reveals that Matt has become a vampire, and he came to obtain holy water, after which he takes them to Marston House. They enter the cellar where vampire Matt attacks Ben, but then the priest and Mark open the door to let in sunlight. Ben stakes Matt, killing him before they all escape from the Marston house. They agreed to meet at church at sundown. Meanwhile, Dr. Cody approaches Officer Parkins about the vampire situation, but Parkins decides to leave town instead. Next, Susan returns home to find her mother, but her mother orders Ben to leave the house and informs Susan that she is now the new servant for Barlow. Suddenly, a vampire bites Susan, prompting Ben to rush in and pulls her out of the house. At Mark's house, the priest explains everything to Mark's parents so they can take them to church. Suddenly, the doorbell rings, and despite a warning from the priest, Mark's dad goes to check it out. Barlow appears from behind and bites Mark's mother. Mark's father is also attacked. In the chaos, Mark runs out of the house while the priest tries to confront Barlow with a cross, but due to the priest's lack of faith in God, allows Barlow to overpower him. Mark dashed into his treehouse and locked the door behind him, surrounded by vampires. Ben brings Susan to the church and asks Dr. Cody's help, but as Susan begins to transform into a vampire, she bolts out of the church. Ben chases after her and discovers the town swarmed with vampires, prompting him to rush back inside the church. Once there, he cannot locate Mark, priest, and also he inquires about Officer Parkins. Suddenly, in the morning, Ben and Dr. Cody visited Mark's house, where they discovered a note revealing Mark's intention to put an end to Barlow. Later, when Mark entered Straker's shop, Danny attempted to attack him. However, Mark defended himself, and Danny lost his life in the struggle. Afterwards, Ben and Dr. Cody encountered Mark on the street. Ben urged that they leave town, but Mark refused because Barlow had been responsible for the loss of his parents. It was then that Ben realized all the cars were missing. The three of them went to the drive-in where they found Susan in the truck, realizing the cars were being used as coffins. Dr. Cody attempted to stake Susan, but Susan's mother fired at Dr. Cody, resulting in her passing. Susan's mother then chased after Ben. As darkness fell over the drive-in due to the screen's glare, vampires emerged to hunt them down. Mark managed to escape and drove a car into the screen, causing the vampires to burn. He then struck Susan's mother with the car, resulting in her passing. They discover Barlow's coffin and drag it into the sunlight, attempting to open it just as the sun sets completely. The coffin suddenly bursts open, prompting them to flee to the barn, where Susan attacks Ben while Mark is pushed out of a window. Susan overpowers Ben, but he manages to stake her, ending her transformation. Meanwhile, Mark encounters Barlow staring at him, forcing him to run to the garage. Just then, Barlow grabs Mark, attempting to harm him. Just in time, Ben stakes Barlow from behind and delivers another stake, finally stopping Barlow. In the end, both Ben and Mark leave town together. The movie ends. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you never miss an update. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment down below. See you in the next one.